We were buying and selling bikes and TVs in grade 9 of high school. It was just to make $50, $100 profit on every single bike.
Luke Lintz didn't just want to follow trends, he wanted to set them. At just 16 years old, Luke co-founded HighKey Technology, a company born out of a simple frustration, the hassle of corded earphones.
So then we started a YouTube channel, which was a gaming YouTube channel. Created that for 8 months, then it went absolutely nowhere. So massive failure. Every single entrepreneur has a desire for wanting more. All entrepreneurs have certain qualities inside of them, and then it's qualities that they develop over time. Losing thousands of dollars in high school, that was our entire bankroll. Problems go through every stage of life. You can't get away from problems in life. It's not possible.
From there, Luke and his brother Jordan turned their vision into a 6-figure business within 6 months, silencing every doubter along the way.
That's when we started up our first company, so to speak, which was the first ever wireless earbuds kind of to be sold across North America. So we scaled that up to 7 figures of sales. Having a focus on one business allows you to catapult way faster than having your focus spread across multiple businesses. You only lose if you quit.
But Luke didn't stop at selling earbuds. Today, he leads an empire of digital services, transforming how personal brands and businesses dominate social media and public relations. For him, the secret to success isn't flashy campaigns. It's about consistency, building emotional connections, and creating a legacy that speaks louder than words. This is the story of how a teenager who started with YouTube inspiration and a dream built a 7-figure business, and why he's only getting started.
Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network. HubSpot has been a huge supporter of the show, and I'm happy they are because I'm a huge believer in HubSpot. I've used it for everything from this show to all the companies I've ever run in the past. And I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience. And let me ask you a question. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to figure out marketing. Either you're doing it yourself or you have a team. And do you ever feel like your marketing team is just running from fire to fire, creating endless content, launching campaigns, generating leads, scoring them, nurturing them, and just when you put out that one fire, 3 more pop up? These days, marketers have never been more spread thin. That's where HubSpot and its new built-in AI assistant, Breeze, come in. When you combine the power of Marketing Hub and Content Hub, every quarter can be your best quarter. Imagine AI that instantly remixes your content for any channel, smart lead scoring that automatically spotlights your hottest prospects, and an AI-powered analytics suite that puts all your KPIs in one place. Plus, AI co-pilots and agents that handle those time-consuming tasks that you've been juggling. Stop spreading yourself thin. Marketing is tough enough. Building a business is tough enough. Stop putting out fires. Start making major moves with HubSpot. Visit HubSpot.com/marketers to learn more. Luke, I'm excited you're here, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. I think that the way that I like to kick these off, just so people get to know you a little bit better, think back to an inflection point when you were growing up, something that sort of set you on the path that you're on today. What do you think that was?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on here. And yeah, the starting point in business was actually when we were buying and selling bikes on Kijiji. We were buying and selling bikes and TVs in grade 9 of high school. And I didn't realize at the time that that was the first business endeavor, but that was the first thing that we ever did, myself and my older brother. And it was just to make, $50, $100 profit on every single bike that we bought and sold. And it really brought us into the entrepreneurial spirit of, making profit off of specific things that we were buying and selling, looking at margins, all of that.
It was like arbitrage?
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you feel like this is actually a very controversial clip that I put out once, and there was a guy who's a billionaire who was talking, and now he owns a whole bunch of companies, and he said, if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, show me your lemonade stand, or show me when you were buying and selling some shit, and arbitraging it, or show me when you were in grade school, trying to sell packets of gum to your friend, whatever it is. Do you think that entrepreneurship is it is something you're born with, that you just have when you were arbitraging bikes off Kijiji? Why did you do that versus trying to go get a job?
I think that all entrepreneurs have certain qualities inside of them, and then it's qualities that they develop over time. So I think every single entrepreneur has a desire for wanting more. And usually that wanting more is in the monetary sense. That's usually the easiest quantifiable answer. And so for me, it was I just wanted more money. And so I was just doing any activity to make more money on the side, even on top of my jobs. And then the second thing was being able to take on risk. And so I don't think I was inherently extremely good at taking on risk, but then I realized in high school, I gambled a ton. When all the money that I made from buying and selling bikes, and then also the jobs that I had, I did demolition, painting work. I also worked at an organic food store. All of that money, I gambled it. And it was just,
Really?
yeah, it was my appetite for risk at the time.
That's so. I also think that's actually wild. That could be problematic, but I actually believe that. So I believe that people who are entrepreneurs, they are like one step away from taking all that energy and putting it towards like a very bad vice. I think because I think you have to be addicted to become a good entrepreneur. I think you have to be addicted to something that it's positive, but if you like veered off in like a little direction, it could be very negative because it's a personality trait of an entrepreneur that puts like everything towards something.
Yeah. Isn't there that continuum of like love and hate being right beside each other where it's very similar?
Yeah.
Where the bridge between that is so close together, where it's kind of like an entrepreneurship. The positive energy that you got with entrepreneurship is so close to like those vices that you could potentially be putting.
Well, I think that's why some entrepreneurs can spiral so easily because all they know is to give 110% to something. And if it's not business, and if it's a bad vice like gambling, drugs, like women, like drinking, then all of a sudden you spiral because entrepreneurs are inherently all or nothing. I think most of them are, but that's something that you did like kind of very early on. You were like, I have a high aptitude for risk, and this is like how I'm going to live my life. You're gambling, earning your money in like what high school?
Yeah, grade 10 of high school.
That's why. So obviously that's not like a way to build a business or to live a life. So as you like mature and whatnot, you still have that attitude for risk. But at what point are you like, okay, this is not like a secure way to make money, just gambling on, I don't even know were you like betting sites and shit?
It was all sports bets.
Sports betting?
Yeah. But
You were so ahead of the curve.
it was like consistently losing on sports betting. Like
That's because the house is always in a win.
I was not good at sports betting, but we weren't even betting against the house. We were betting against other people. Like we were doing Draft Street, DraftKings, all of those sites, and losing thousands of dollars in high school when like that was our entire bankroll. Yeah. And so I think what it taught me was that it got me completely disconnected and really numbed out from money, honestly.
Which can be good and bad.
Yeah,
it can be good and bad. Okay, so that's high school. So when did you start like moving on from arbitraging bikes and gambling?
Yeah.
And when did you start like actually building stuff?
Yeah, so then we started a YouTube channel, me and my older brother, which was a gaming YouTube channel at the end of grade 10. And it's because we were watching like all of these YouTubers, mainly like KSI, W2S, these people who played video games. We were like, we could do that. We're kind of funny people. We play video games. Like, let's just record ourselves. So we did that, created very cringy YouTube content.
Still up?
Oh, we deleted it all. I wish it was still up. Yeah, created that for 8 months and then it went absolutely nowhere. So massive failure, 8 months of creating YouTube content that just went down the drain. And then we kind of reflected, we're like, okay, what do we want to do next with all of our time? And in high school, you have a ton of time.
Yeah.
Ton
You
of
don't have
time
to worry about
available.
working, paying rent, anything.
No responsibilities. You have all this extra time. You're not necessarily working because you're in high school. And so that's when we started up our first like company, so to speak, which was the first ever like wireless earbuds kind of to be sold across North America.
How did you think through that concept?
Well, we had a buddy who thought of the idea of wireless earbuds where it's like, there's wireless headphones out. Why isn't there just wireless
Bluetooth
earbuds?
Yeah, before like AirPods and everything.
And so we just did tons of research online of like, where can we find prototypes of completely wireless earbuds? We found one pair in China and we were like, this could be it. Ordered a sample. We were like, wow, this is pretty cool. So then we bulk ordered it, slapped a logo on it, created a name, and we were like, okay, now we have this sick product. How do we sell this? And so we used the only platform we knew at the time, which was Instagram, which we use personally. We're like, okay, well, let's create like, some meme content stuff that we consume and just like product place the earbuds in it.
How to do?
it ended up crushing. Yeah, it's because it was just a sick product. We didn't do any crazy marketing. It was just such a sick product. And so when you have like a really good product and really good timing, like you can really do any type of marketing and it'll crush. And so
That's a lesson, because too many people try and market really shitty products, and then you just end up like spinning your wheels.
exactly. Yeah. So we scaled that up to 7 figures of sales before I
Seven
graduated.
figure. What was the margins on that?
Pretty horrible margins because we were selling it for so cheap. We were selling it for like $60 per pair of wireless earbuds compared to like AirPods that
Or yeah, a couple $100.
yeah.
So you have like 7 figures, but ultimately, at some point you're gonna have cash flow issues, or it's going to be like really low margin. So it's a business that, yeah, it's a business,
Yeah.
but you're gonna have to scale it to like the tens of millions if you really want to have a significant business and actually be able to take money out of it.
We didn't really take that into consideration. It was about 10% profit margins.
That's really low.
Really low.
Yeah.
And then we ended up wanting to product diversify because we were like, okay, well, we can't bank all in on these wireless earbuds, especially since AirPods started to come out and all of these other earbuds. And we were like, okay, if we want this business to actually grow, we need to go into other product sectors.
And then what did you do? How did you diversify?
When we went to other product sectors, speakers, backpacks, that's when it went horrible. Because they were just,
I expected you to say something else. I know, I kind of know this story. We've spoken a lot, but I forgot that there was a point when it just tanked.
yeah,
Completely. Yeah.
horrible. It's because there was just so much competition. And it's because we weren't as good at marketing back then. We let off it.
But that's the curse of getting early success.
Uh-huh.
Because then you think you're good, and you think that you can figure out anything else. But I mean, obviously not so much.
Very true.
So, okay. So then after that, this is still you and your brother. Did you kill that business completely?
Yeah, so we ended up going actually $300,000 in debt,
From ordering product you couldn't sell?
ordering products that we couldn't sell. And then all of the increase in cost, the freight and shipping to get the shipping from China to the US, and then the holding costs because they weren't selling. So we
Or
were
they're sitting in a warehouse somewhere.
warehousing fees were just ridiculous because backpacks and the batteries inside of them, because they were charging backpacks, were
You're just like burning cash.
burning cash. And at one point we were like, okay, well, we need to do something or else we're screwed. It wasn't debt that we could go bankrupt on
Yeah.
because it was debt from our family members. And so,
They invested.
yeah.
Oh my God.
And so I would have just been bankrupt. I was,
So stressful.
yeah, I was 18. Yeah. And so we reflected back. We're like, okay, what was something good that came out of all of this? So we're like, okay, we knew how to grow an Instagram page.
Yeah.
That's one thing. We had millions of natural views on Instagram. We had 250,000 plus followers. So we knew one thing from this. We were good at growing an Instagram page. We were like, can we do this for other people? And then we started up an agency.
And also, agencies are not easy to grow, because there's the agency market's still super saturated. There's tons of agencies out there, but I mean, you saw that you could probably grow Instagram better than most people. And I also think most agencies don't know what the fuck they're doing. But that's besides the point. So even like at that point when you're 18, you just talk to me about like even because a lot of the stuff that happened to you at 18 would probably stress out people so much that they would never jump into anything else. So when you're at $300,000 in debt at 18, that's a significant amount of money. And then your family's money is on the line too. So you're probably stressed about that. So what would be the advice for somebody who's going through their first business and is in debt and owes investors money or owes somebody money, and they're just trying to figure out, how do I keep going when I'm dealing with all this bullshit? Because all this bullshit is normal for entrepreneurs, for anybody who's taken a risk and built something. But for the first time you're going through it, it's very stressful. So what's the advice for people? Like, how did you go through it? Was it just, because you could have gone two ways. You could have said, I'm never fucking doing this again. Your family's, they're supportive, but they're probably all like a little bit pissed off. So what do you suggest to that first time entrepreneur?
Yeah, the going the two ways is very true. It's kind of like with a lot of things. Like, for example, if you grow up in a household that's extremely toxic, a lot of the kids grow up two different ways. One, they take those toxic attributes and they bring that into their adult life. Or the second way is they want to get as far away from that as possible. And so they do everything they can to get as far away. It's usually like very polar opposite. And so like, I think that's very similar with going the two ways when you're under extreme amount of stress in entrepreneurship, especially like when it's your first business. For me, just when you were asking that question, I was thinking back to the mindset I was in back then. And I remember it being so hard every single day. I would wake up with so much stress on my mind constantly. And what I would do is I would just numb myself out from reality by just going straight to my desk every single day and literally working 14 to 16 hours a day. I wouldn't talk with anybody. I wouldn't say anything. If people asked about how the business was going, I wouldn't talk about it because it was just so much pain inside. And so I really just thought that I could work through it. And if I was working constantly, that I would get to a place where I was out of this pain, of this stress. And it's very interesting that me and my brother have constant conversations now. My brother, so like, because our little brother's completely part of the business as well. And we actually look back on those times and reminisce on those times. I laugh at them.
In a good way?
In such a good way. It's like, wow, like, because it's such a perspective shift of being able to have such a low point in your life where now I'm able to, like, now I go through hard times still. You can't get away from problems in life. It's not possible. Problems go through every stage of life. And if you go down a street and look at people who are walking down the street, every single person is facing their own problems, whether they're rich, poor, whether they're happily married, every single person has their own problems. And so being able to have that perspective shift of looking back on like what you thought was just, just the worst time of your entire life is pretty fun.
Well, it's good after he got there. It's not good in it, dude.
Yeah.
Do you think that the way you dealt with it is the best way to deal with it? And I don't have an opinion, or I don't know what the best way to deal with it is. I've never had to owe my family $300,000. That to me would be super stressful. I don't know how I deal with that. I don't know if I deal with it well at all. I mean, I've had investor money before, but it's like different when it's family, because you don't want to lose anyone's money. You don't want to lose investor money either, of course. But family, it's like family's going to be with you forever, no matter what business fails, they're going to be around. So how do you think that was like the smartest way? And not just don't answer that question just from the perspective of like this specific problem. Answer it from the perspective of any time you're dealing with something that is a degree more stress than you're used to dealing with. What is like the healthiest way to work through that? Because even if you owed somebody, family, $300,000, or you owed investors $10 million and things aren't going well, what's like the way to work through that so you can still be effective, but you still protect your mental health?
Yeah. I personally believe that there are so many statistics out there about stress killing and stress causing diseases inside of your body, and stress being the biggest cause of cancer, stress being the biggest leading indicator of early death. I think stress kills more than any single other thing. Any workout routines, any health diets, all of that. I think stress kills more than that. So I think figuring out ways to eradicate stress out of your life is the number one priority that people should be working towards. And it's very, very difficult during times like that where, it is very stressful, like being $300,000 in debt at such a young age. What I did was I just numbed myself out from reality as much as possible. And I created a safe space with work. So everything else outside of work wasn't safe and work was safe. And so I still have this to this day where every single morning, most of the time I wake up with anxiety, even though there's not really anything to be anxious about. And it's because for a 4-year period of time, I train myself to every single day I wake up with anxiety to get as fast as possible to my computer desk to start working. And so it's like your brain is a computer and it can be trained. And when you train in a certain way for such a long period of time, it's very hard to train it out of that.
Do you think that's healthy?
No.
I don't need to tell people at all.
It definitely.
I didn't know that's how you operate.
Yeah.
You when you first start working every morning, it's from a place of, it's almost from a place of like a little bit of fear.
Very anxiety based.
And is that, I mean, that the thing that happened with your family when you were young and you owed them money, how long did that last? How long was that period?
Oh, wow. 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
That's some trauma, dude.
Yeah.
That's some trauma.
Built up trauma.
So when you talk about like stress being like a silent killer, have you, I mean, this is, say what you want to say, but you not tried to like do work to try and unwind that trauma?
For sure.
Because now you don't have
Yep.
these money issues. You have business, you have stress, but you don't have like, you have experience. You understand that $300,000, first of all, is not a lot of money in business context, but it can be repaid. Any amount of money can be repaid, and any amount, and no problems are so significant enough, especially with what we're dealing with. I mean, maybe there are people that have much bigger problems than us, and they do. But the stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day, even in a business, even if it's doing very well, you're still going to be alive tomorrow. The business is going to keep carrying on. So have you tried to like go through like, I don't know, like therapy or anything like that, so that you don't approach each day with trauma, but like you have a different perspective?
Dude, for sure. Yeah. I've been in therapy for the past 10 months weekly.
So this is more of a new thing.
For sure.
And do you find that it's working?
Yeah. The therapy that I go to wasn't directly for stress. It was mainly for relationships. And it was because of like childhood trauma that was built up and created the type of person I am. But a lot of the problems that we face today, I think, come from childhood experiences. And so unpacking a lot of the things that I faced as a child in my childhood was able to, give me more clarity in terms of how I operate day to day, even so much as why do I operate from an anxiety-based framework, and why do I operate where I feel the need to be constantly working? And it comes from childhood, of the feeling of not being good enough, or only being good if I perform in a certain way, and things that are trained into you.
I mean, sometimes like someone's dark side can actually help them in their career. And it seems like it actually has helped you in your business, but it may not be the healthiest way to do what you do. And have you thought about that before, like your dark side helping you?
For sure, yeah. I think my childhood and my dark side, like you're saying, has helped me tremendously in business, but has been a huge detriment in every single other area of my life.
What was the thing in your childhood that you think led to this feeling of anxiety that was probably just sort of further doubled down on when you owed your family some money? I'm sure that didn't help at all, but it came from much earlier.
Well, we could unpack a lot here. Like I could speak about this for hours. Like I've spoke hundreds of hours with my therapist. And stuff. But yeah. My parents went through a divorce when I was at a very young age, and the thing that was very unique about our situation and very difficult was the child custody case. And so whenever two parents get divorced with kids, like if they can't work it out themselves, then it goes to the court system to be able to figure out the child custody. And sometimes it goes like 50-50, or sometimes like they can't agree on anything. And so we started off 50-50 between our mom and our dad. And then our mom pretty much like completely parental alienated us from our dad. And so people don't necessarily know what parental alienation is, but it's basically like instilling beliefs and instilling certain thought systems inside of a kid's mind that's like very susceptible to, influence. And so she instilled these thoughts that her dad wasn't safe, and that the only person that was safe was basically her. And pretty crazy thoughts, like things like sexual abuse inside of our minds when it never really happened. And then it would lead into so many different things, where we went into CFS, which is basically like child custody services in Canada, and all of these things. And that brought its own set of problems. But basically within all of that, I was the person who stayed quiet throughout it all. So I was like the stationary one.
You stayed quiet compared to your brothers?
Yeah, like my older brother was the one who talked adamantly about a lot of things, because he was the one who my mom like mainly worked with, so to speak. And then my little brother acted out throughout all of it. And so he basically was deemed that he had ADHD. And so he got put on medication at a very young age. And it led to his own problems with that he has been able to get over tremendously. And he's an amazing human being now. But myself, what I did was I just stayed quiet. And so I went through a period of, getting a very lack of attention.
You had all this trauma building up.
Yeah.
You're not saying anything. You're not speaking out. You're not dealing with it.
Yeah. And so like my parents, my dad ended up getting custody of us, and he grew us into like the people we are today, the men we are today. And so like my dad is the person who I have to thank for the people who me and my brothers are today, and the reason we are today. He was an amazing dad with the stuff that he was given, and the situation that it was. But yeah, throughout all that, it was the lack of attention that I had. It was that I was never really taught how to showcase my emotions and to acknowledge my emotions inside of my head, and then to actually communicate those emotions. And so it led to just a ridiculous amount of problems. But in business, it was definitely it definitely helped me out in the business.
It helps, but there's a lot there that nobody should ever have to go through. It sounds like I don't know your whole family scenario, but it sounds like your mom weaponized the court system to a degree. Which is super fucked up, and that's a whole other conversation that should never happen ever. And then when did you start sort of getting back in touch with your dad? Just to understand the timeline. So when you were, for example, going through all this stress about your business, were you closer with your mom or your dad at that point?
Yeah, so our dad got full custody of us when I was about 9.
Okay, so at this point you had trauma.
Yeah,
but then your dad got full custody. So you did have positive influence in your life from 9 until, there was still remnants of very early childhood trauma that were playing over when you were going through this whole business failure. Okay, I understand. And I'm just more curious than anything, because you mentioned you've only been going to therapy for 10 months. Why did this all come to pass? And I think that it's actually, maybe just tell a little bit, just briefly, how your sort of entrepreneur career evolved over the years. And then even 10 months ago, which I know you were successful 10 months ago, and I know that you have an incredible business 10 months ago, why at that point were you now I need to go to therapy? Because this is after a lot of success.
Yeah. I'll touch on the business journey, and then we can go on that. But just make sure I hit that.
Okay, I'll remember. Yeah.
So how the business journey went was basically start up the wireless earbuds, had a massive amount of success with that before graduating high school, lost it all, went into debt, had those huge feelings of stress, wanted to transition to an agency, transitioned to the agency, started making some money and getting clients with the agency, started being able to repay back some of the loan, started to build up cash flow. Then we completely closed out the wireless earbud business and the product-based business, because we were like, okay, the thing that we have to do is focus. We need to make sure we're focusing on things. We didn't listen to that advice. We ended up distracting ourselves with so many different things, but
you had the right intentions.
We had the right intentions at the start. And then we ended up going into a lot of different services within the agency. So we started doing social media, then we started doing press services for our clients, and then we started doing the giveaway for our clients, where basically we would partner up with celebrity and they would do giveaways to grow our clients' followers. And that's where things really blew up.
Well, that was probably, a lot of people do social media marketing, right? But I think that working with celebrities, doing giveaways, that's something that's so niche and not a lot of people do. And if they do, they don't do it well. And that probably gave you, and also that's a massive high ticket item you're selling. So the revenue from that's also incredible. But do you still do those as much as, because when you look at your business now as it's evolved, you still do the social media, you still do the giveaways to a degree, but not as much, correct?
Yeah, we do the giveaways once a quarter now.
So how, when you look at all the different things you sell now as an agency, why do you sell things the way that you sell them? Why do you only do giveaways once a quarter? And maybe even explain what those are, because that's very cool. You get to work with celebrities and whatnot, but then why don't you do them like once a month?
Yeah. So where we've transitioned our business model is as much of a retainer model as possible, just because we're trying to get out of the sales where we're trying to get into fulfillment. I love fulfillment. I love trying to make our product and services better to make our clients as happy as possible. I'd never really liked sales. I was never a natural salesperson. I had to force myself into sales. And so being in a retainer model where we create a product and service that's as sticky as possible, where people are getting the services and getting the results that they're looking for and stay on for as long as possible. And that's with our social media management services, where we come in, take care of full service, everything from the videography, editing, strategy, post-production, the posting, all of that.
And then when you look at the other side of the business, the giveaway side, which is really just you partner with a celebrity. I think people have seen these giveaways before. They like have like 10 Birkins or whatever. And then they're like, or like a whole bunch of like MacBooks or phones or whatever. And they're like, okay, this is like where they follow. And then you do a giveaway and then somebody wins the prize.
Yeah.
And why do you do those once a quarter? And why didn't you just kill them off?
Yep. So the celebrity partnerships, yeah, it's where we give away massive prizes. And then we say, the celebrities are basically saying, guys, I'm giving away all of these prizes. All you have to do is go to @HighKey and follow everybody that they're following. And then our @HighKey page, we follow a list of our giveaway sponsors. They're each paying us to sponsor the giveaway and then gain the followers in return. And so we used to do those once a month, and then we cut it back to once a quarter because they still make money and they're a great way for us to, get very notable inside of like the celebrity industry.
You get association with like very cool people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we stopped doing them once a month because they're a lot of effort, a lot of time commitment, and they're just one-time sales. So it's no retainer sales. It's all upsells of our past clients. And so it's like making some quick money, but it's not what we're trying to do, where we're trying to increase our enterprise value, which is done through
recurring revenue, which makes a lot of sense. And also, like I think about it, for clients that actually do participate, do you feel like the value of like the actual follow, because it's like giveaway followers. So it's like different than I have been following your product or service for like the past 6 months, and I'm a big fan of the content you post. So do you find that like there's a lot of value still for people to like engage with this stuff, get giveaway followers? Like, do you see a lot of those followers like churning, or do they actually like retain?
For sure. Yeah. About 20 to 25% of the followers drop off after the giveaway. And really the only people that make sense to enter the giveaways to sponsor them and gain a ton of followers are ones with high ticket services. And so that's why we've primarily focused on the aesthetics industry over the past years, and why we're focusing on it heavily in the future. Because if you think about like plastic surgeons, for example, they have services that go all the way up to $30,000 plus for these massive surgeries. And so they get one client from this giveaway of gaining, say, 60,000 followers, which is very reasonable over a period of time. 60,000 followers come in.
You're going to get one.
They're going to get one client over the period of time, especially when it's coming from a celebrity like Cardi B or Nicki Minaj, where it's women that...
Someone in that audience wants plastic surgery.
For sure. Yeah. And so then they make back that money times 3 or 4.
That makes sense. So it's like, even like when you do like these, like kind of like growth hack kind of things, like you still have to have a way to monetize and make sure that you're actually capitalizing on it. Like it's not just getting followers.
For sure. Yeah. Unless it's just some rich kid that's wanting to like have vanity metrics.
Which is, yeah, I mean, but that doesn't serve a purpose, like a business purpose. Like if you actually want to make use of this, you have to figure out a way to actually monetize those. And I'm sure you probably get that shit from people that go participate in the giveaways. Like they're like, well, I didn't get results from this. I'm like, okay, well then you have to focus on actually building a business around your Instagram, not just having an Instagram with followers for followers' sake.
For sure.
And this is actually probably where you hit them with like the other side of the business.
It's the upsell. But yeah,
no, that makes a lot. Okay, so now I understand like where your business is at. How you sort of grew the business was you did the giveaway that made money, but it's super labor intensive. And that was a kind of not high ticket. I mean, it could be high ticket. $6,000 could be high ticket depending on what else you sell.
For sure.
And then you took the customers from that, and then you move them into like a recurring revenue retainer model, right? And then, I mean, that's actually, I think that something that most service-based businesses should focus on, like a retainer-based model. But it seems like a lot of agencies like still don't get it right. I feel like they're still very project-based, or their retainers. Like I'm curious how you structure your retainers and why you've built a successful business around a retainer model. When I've worked with a lot of agencies that seem to, and maybe it's the quality of the service you deliver, because I've worked with a lot of PR agencies and just agencies in general, and I honestly find like the retainer is too expensive for what I'm getting out of it. Or even with like PR, they're like, it could be $5,000, it could be $20,000 a month, but then there's like no guarantee that I'm even going to get anything. And when I do get stuff, I feel like it's like bullshit media placement. So what is like, I mean, what are the issues in your industry, and why do you stand out so much?
Yeah. So when you're starting up an agency, that's a retainer model. I'm just going to speak from like our agency. So like if you're going to start up like a social media agency or any type of marketing agency, one of the biggest levers is like the price point that you're at based off the service that you're delivering. So you have an option. You could be the lowest in the market, the cheapest. You could be middle in the market, somewhere in between, or you could be the highest price in the market. So the only one of those three options that give you zero benefit is being right in the middle, because you're going to get outpriced by the lowest in the market, and then you're not going to have enough margin to actually pay for good staff and then all of the things that increase your hard cost to deliver more value to
So
the
if somebody wants to spend money, then they'll go to the premium.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so basically we were choosing between the lowest cost option and the highest cost. And what we want to do is we want to be working with constantly the highest level individuals, because they're the most enjoyable to work with. They don't complain about their bills. They want the highest value, the best experience, so they're willing to pay for it. And working with the highest level individuals, you actually learn from. And I wanted to learn from my clients, because that's an amazing thing. And being friends with the clients is awesome.
And do you think that like now the services you actually sell are PR, social media, do you, and then you do the giveaways, what people, I mean, actually, let me say this differently. Is PR for every business owner? Do you feel like every business owner should be engaging in PR, or are there certain people where it's not useful for them? Because I think there's a Bill Gates quote, I think so, that you said like, if I was down to my last dollar, then I would spend it on PR.
Yeah.
He's talking about the power of PR.
Yeah.
I think you said this quote a few times, but do you believe that to be true?
I think every single business owner can have some level of PR. I don't think every business owner needs to be constantly featured in the media, constantly featured in press, TV. But we've gone the direction of practically every single one of the packages that we sell, we put a little bit of press on it. So getting them featured in some sort of media, because at the end of the day, every single person is searching up on Google before making a purchasing decision. And so having some level of media on there is going to benefit you in the long run.
Do you feel like traditional PR is starting to die compared to social media?
For sure. Yeah, 100%. Traditional PR is on the steep decline.
So when you say PR, where are you putting people? Are you putting people in Forbes or Inc. or on MSNBC? Like, where are you actually putting people where it still makes sense? Or are you trying to get them on podcasts and shit like news media?
So PR is a very broad term.
Exactly.
It encompasses even newspapers, billboards. It encompasses like pretty much every level of marketing. It's just the aspect of leveling up somebody's brand and presence, pretty much physical and digital. What we focus on is new age media for the most part. So the only type of old age media that we focus on is digital based publications, where people are getting only featured in digital media that ranks on Google. But then outside of that, it's like working on getting them featured in podcasts. Sometimes we're working on influencer collaborations, which is like PR related.
Because I think that even in new media, people don't know really how to capitalize on PR. And like for somebody who's like a business owner out there right now, somebody's listening and they want to like figure out how to get started in PR, should they focus on just getting placements first, or should they figure out, kind of like what you alluded to before, they should figure out like the funnel of how they're going to use that PR?
Yeah, it's a good question. It depends where they're at in business, like if they're just starting out or if they're currently making money. An easy way to start with like press is just going and doing press syndications for your business. So basically, this is where you go on to like Access Wire, Globe and Newswire. There's tons of press syndications where you can go on. You write up basically a press release. Yeah. And so this is like a one-page outline of a major update in your business. If you acquired another business, if you are maybe just starting your business, released a new product line, this is where you're writing from the perspective of your own business. You go onto Access Wire, Globe and Newswire, there's tons of them.
But do people actually read that?
What it does is it ranks on Google underneath your name.
Okay.
And so that's the primary thing. We don't really do press for the purposes of gaining a huge new audience from the publications that they're being featured on. It's mainly from the perspective that ranks on Google and how amazing that is when anybody's searching up their name for that additional authority.
So it's like social proof, basically. It's social proof that like you've done something impressive. When I Google your name, which is like your new resume, this is what comes up. And when you think about social media versus, so if I'm trying to create social proof around somebody and thought leadership around somebody, they have all their socials. If I Google their name, they're going to have a couple articles around them. But now anybody can pay for verification. So what is the signal that I'm cool and noteworthy and actually know what I'm talking about? And I'm asking that because now I don't know what to look for when I'm bringing on podcast guests, because it's hard when somebody is verified across all platforms. It seems like everybody now is very good at becoming like a thought leader and recognized online. So outside of Wikipedia, which seems to be like the last place that nobody can sort of like growth hack their way in, I'm sure there's ways to do it anyways. It seems like everybody seems famous online now if they're focused on it. So where do people, that being said, if I was a client and I said, listen, I want to really stand out, not just pay whatever the $7 a month for Instagram verification or whatever it is. I want to really stand out. What do I have to do so that I look better than everyone else who's paying for verifications now?
Yeah. So one way is this is a kind of like a hack for growing any brand. It's the associations with credible figures. And so you can't really fake a constant association with celebrities or leaders within your industry. And so if you're going onto somebody's Instagram page and like you see that they're associated with other credible figures, that's high level entrepreneurs, celebrities, or anything like that, that's an indicator that you can't really fake.
So then if I was going to, so if I'm a business leader and I want to become more of like a thought leader or whatever, is there a strategy that you would tell? Is it starting a podcast and interviewing people? Like what's the strategy that I would have to do?
Yeah, well, the podcast is the best way to
like some sort of interview style.
Yeah, a podcast is amazing. It's actually the first way that we got clients, and this is for any single social media agency or marketing agency. It's literally the best sales funnel out there. It should be illegal, pretty much. Basically, what you do is you partner with a high level podcast, or you do your own podcast. It's easier if you partner with already an established podcast. And you say, listen, I'm going to give you an affiliate cut if you basically refer over guests to me, but you don't have to refer over guests until we do services for you for free and you see the results that we get. So this is exactly what we did. This is how we got our first client. Yeah, this is how we got our first clients. Yeah, this is how we got our first clients, is that we partnered with this one podcast that was already established. We did all of his services for an extremely discounted rate, managed all of his channels. After 2 months, he saw the results that we did. He's like, you guys are great. And then we're like, you should start referring us over to your podcast guests. Then we booked podcast guests onto his podcast that we knew would be good clients. And we gave him a script to say at the end of the podcast. So we basically go through an entire podcast. And then at the end of the podcast, they would close down the recordings and then they would just talk one-on-one.
Of course, as you always do. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they would talk one-on-one, and always the podcast guest would bring up and be like, hey, I saw your Instagram. Like it's pretty good. He's like, matter of fact, like I have a team that runs it and I'd love to give you their information. Booked up a call with us and we closed them. That's actually how we got some of our best. We have retainer clients that are paying us to this day that were from that funnel.
Because I mean, it's so funny that conversation about who do you work with, or like who puts this all together, or who runs your social. I actually probably have that conversation with like 95% of the guests that come on, because they're all interested, right? Especially if you've built something significant. And they're like, okay, so like I take a look at your social, you're putting out X amount of clips per day. Oh, look at, like, I love the production value of your show. Like, who does this for you? And I think that's a very smart strategy.
We're going to start doing this in the aesthetics industry, where I'm starting up an aesthetics-based podcast that I'm just going to invite on our ideal clients onto the podcast.
Talk to me about niching down, because you've done that very well. And I think, when did you start niching down? Recently, right? Very recently. So this whole agency that you built, all of HighKey, was just really not a generalist agency, but you had a general customer profile or avatar that you targeted. It was anybody that wanted social media, PR, basically, right? You still take other people outside of aesthetics, but now you're niching down. What has changed in your business since you started to niche?
Yeah, I'll give some background before the niching down, and I'll say like what's changed. So we were very generalist. When we went into starting up the agency first, we actually focused mainly on real estate. And so you're working with real estate investors. And then since we did good work for our first real estate investor, it brought us to a whole other repertoire of real estate investors. So we were working with many different, and then we started expanding to lawyers, cosmetic surgeon, a lot of different industries. And so then it was about 2 years ago, and we were looking at our entire client roster between the giveaways, press, and social media, and there were zero consistencies with our client base. And so we were running into a major issue on a couple of different levels. One was client acquisition. So basically with Facebook ads, that was a huge way that we were attracting leads, and Instagram DMs. We didn't have a solid approach that was getting us a specific type of clientele, because we were going after really just any business owner. And then retaining top level employees and training up employees was very difficult, because we were having to train our sales staff on talking with 15 different client avatars.
That's interesting. And yeah, I don't think you ever think about the staff side or the employee side of having like not a clear vision for the business, because then they're just as confused as you.
Very true. Yeah. And so during this entire time, we were listening to so much Alex Hormozi, big Alex Hormozi fan. And during all of this, we were listening to all of Alex Hormozi's advice, but besides his major pieces of advice, which is focusing and niching down. And it was a mental barrier we had to get past, where it was mainly like, if we niche down, we're cutting off all of the other clients that we currently have. And like, how would we say no to other clients on sales calls? So very, very difficult for our mind to get over. Then it got to a point of where we were spending around $40,000 per month on Facebook ads, plus all of our other marketing, literally getting hundreds of book calls per month for our sales team. We had a massive sales team and very little sales coming through, because the conversion rate was just horrible.
So you had 40 grand. How many leads did that give you? And what's the conversion rate on that?
So
it was a non-niche conversion rate.
Non-niche conversion rate. So it was $40,000 per month. We were getting over 1,000 leads from Facebook lead-in forms. So they fill in the Facebook lead form. Then we were directing them towards a calendar booking to book a calendar. Then we got, say, about 400 to 500 bookings from that per month. And then from that, we rated the leads. So we'd rate them 1 to 5 to 5 out of 5. I would highly suggest that anybody who has a CRM, when leads are coming in, even if you're niche down, rate the leads in quality. Because
how do you rate the leads in quality before you speak to them?
So we got a VA to basically go through and see the form that they filled out, search their Instagram page and search their website. And then we rated it based off of qualification factors that we had, trained up one VA to do it. And so one VA's entire job was just rating the leads. So then we would end up getting about 100 to 150 4 out of 5 to 5 out of 5 leads, which are our ideal client they should close from the 40,000. We were making money from it, but the operation was just ridiculous. We had so many salespeople, so many setters, so many closers, and it was just ridiculous to manage everything.
And also, was it slightly profitable or no?
For sure. Definitely.
It was profitable, but it could be much better.
Definitely profitable. It could be much better. and with much less like staff overall. So we looked at this and we just did the 80-20 rule. We looked at all of our customer base, took all of the revenue from each customer, and then took the 20% of the top paying customers, longest lasting customers. And it was, just so eye opening that it was completely in the aesthetics industry. So we're talking plastic surgeons, med spas, all of these people, because they got the highest value services from us.
That's when you niche down.
That's when we niche down, completely niche down.
How has it changed? Because it's so interesting. Just this weekend, actually, somebody asked the difference between growth and scale. And I actually looked up the definition and grow, because it was a great question. And growth is like just increasing your revenue, but scale is increasing your service delivery without increasing your expenses. And I think that that's where people really don't think about the scale of their business, think about growth at all costs. How do we hire a ridiculous amount of sales team or whatever it is so we can keep servicing new customers? But what if instead of like a 10% profit margin or 15% profit margin, what if all of a sudden we just niche down and we can get to like a 40 or 50 or 60 or 70%, whatever the number is? And I think that business owners, there is a point where you have to think how to do that. And it's a scary point because you're having to restructure what got you to where you're at. And you don't want to just absolutely blow up your business. But then you realize, okay, if we keep operating like this, we can't have like 300 salespeople. It's like, it's too much.
Dude, you're literally speaking exactly from my head. I was doing this math in my head and I was like, okay, for us to get to $100 million business, which is like what we're trying to get to, we would literally have to have a staff of just 300 to 400 sales reps. And it's like, I do not want to manage a team of 300 to 400 sales reps. And there's no way that that's needed in this day and age.
No. So then you start to figure out like your revenue per head.
Yep.
And do you actually have that number like before and after? If you don't,
I don't have the revenue per head.
No, but it's improving is the answer. Yeah. That's what you're trying to optimize. Very, very. So now that you've gone through this whole switch, like what have you seen in the business?
Well, we ended up completely liquidating and canceling our entire sales team.
The whole thing. How many people?
Whole operation. There was, at its peak, there was like 30 people.
It's a decent sized team.
Yeah.
And you were still
on sales.
Just on sales. And you were just managing them yourself.
I had a manager in place and then I was helping manage an aspect of it.
And then, so this new strategy, just focusing on aesthetics, which is, I think it's a very smart entrepreneur lesson. Like you figure out where your customers are coming from, find a way to niche down. What has it done to the business now?
Dude, it was crazy. It was literally nuts. Like the second that we niched down, opportunities just started flowing our way. We changed up our website and like referrals started coming in. It was crazy. Like just natural bookings on our website of people in the aesthetics industry, us getting booked on, we got booked on 5 speaking gigs in the aesthetics industry in the last few months. And now we're specialists in this industry. And so it's really unbelievable what it did. In terms of like revenue numbers, we're at the exact same revenue that we were beforehand, if not a little bit less. But our profit margins went from about 20 to 25%. Now they're at like 50%.
That's phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. And how long did it take you to do this whole transition?
It took us about 7 months.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
I have a question. What was you did an article where you had to submit like tax forms. Who was that with again? What was what was that article about? That wasn't about your transition into a new type of, that was just about
our entire story, just going through entrepreneurship journey. It was mainly speaking about Gen Zs in entrepreneurship.
What were they trying to figure out? So tell the story about what happened, because I think it's actually very interesting too. Because I didn't know that when Business Insider does a story on you, you have to submit your tax forms. So they do their due diligence to make sure you're not full of shit.
Yeah. So some journalists are extremely good at their job and take it very, very seriously, as they should.
And when did they reach out to you?
So they reached out to us. Actually, our team reaches out to journalists all the time. So our team reached out to them and it piqued their interest because they were needing to do a story on Gen Z whenever it got published, like Q1, basically. And so they're like, this is the story I'm going to do. And so they wanted to do an entire basically op-ed speaking about ourselves and our evolution through business as a Gen Z and what it meant. And then basically throughout it, giving tips to like other Gen Z who are trying to start a business. And so this particular journalist who was doing an interview with us needed to fact check every single dollar value that we were explaining. And so when we were talking about our overall revenue numbers, she asked us to submit our tax forms. I was like, wow, I've never experienced this before, but it was Business Insider wanted the publication. So I asked my accountant, because I haven't even collected all the tax forms in one place. And so he collected the tax forms from 2020 to 2024. So like about 3 to 4 year time span. And we submitted them in, and yeah, it totaled to 23 million in revenue, which was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. That's pretty, I didn't know the Business Insider did that. What was the purpose of the article? Because you've also said, and we had this conversation, we can talk about this as well, that like younger generations are getting lazier. So the article was not about younger generations being lazy, even though—
No, that was a different one.
Okay. Yeah. So this one was just about what was like it was your story, but it was meant to be like, okay, this is what you can accomplish.
Yeah.
What was the article that came out about Gen Zs being lazy?
There's this other interview that we went on where this journalist was interviewing me just about random things. And we were just having basically a chat. It was almost like a podcast that was off the air. Yeah. She was just interviewing me about random things. And she was asking my thoughts about Gen Z and stuff. And I just said this one line of, I think the majority of Gen Z and millennials are lazy and they're getting lazier. And she's like, that's money. We're running with that. And so we ended up taking that, and she wanted to build a full story. So she just did an interview. But basically the outline and premise of that is, I think for the most part, Gen Z is extremely lazy in comparison to previous generations, where previous generations in the 1900s, like men were going to war, people were working on farms, doing hard labor, all of these things. And I see so much complaining around people my age and in Gen Z in general when we have life so easy. And I think it's only getting worse because now we have AI where people don't even have to think for themselves anymore. And especially the younger generation, like Gen X or wherever, where they're growing up, literally where their developing minds don't have to think anymore.
I just want to take a second and thank FreshBooks for supporting today's episode. Now, there are 3 numbers that you have to know: 30 million, 60 billion, 192 hours. What do these mean? Over 30 million people have used FreshBooks. Over 60 million invoices have been paid through FreshBooks, and over 192 hours have been saved annually using FreshBooks all-in-one accounting. If you're an entrepreneur, a freelancer, a solopreneur, if you are tired of chasing payments and drowning in receipts, FreshBooks is here to make your life easier. It's the all-in-one accounting solution that helps you manage everything, from creating professional estimates and proposals to tracking time and automatically billing clients. If you need to capture expenses on the go, just snap a photo. With over 100 business integrations, FreshBooks fits perfectly into your workflow, and when tax time rolls around, everything is organized and ready for your accountant, or you can rely on FreshBooks' expert bookkeeping services. Over 30 million people have used FreshBooks, processing over $60 billion in invoices. And like I said, they're saving 192 hours annually. It's user-friendly, seamless, and offers award-winning customer service. Stop wasting your time on manual accounting. Start your 30-day free trial at FreshBooks.com. No credit card required. And if you're catching this before January 7th, make sure to head over to FreshBooks.com/pricing-offer for 75% off your first 3 months. If you missed January 7th, I still want you to head over to that link, freshbooks.com/pricing-offer, because they will always have some great promotions for listeners of Success Story. That is freshbooks.com/pricing-offer. So I'll tell this story we're talking about before we press record. I think it's interesting. So I use a lot of AI, and I also agree. So a couple different things we can talk about. I also think younger generations are getting lazy. I think that I notice it myself, and I notice it through friends, because everybody's having a very hard time hiring entry-level talent. So entry-level talent does not seem to want to work. And this is going to be a generalization, don't get me wrong. But I'll tell you some stories that have happened. I think I've told this story before. I can't remember if it was even to you. But one of my good friends, he's probably tried to hire 10 different like videographers. And I've also tried to hire videographers. He's trying to hire them full-time. And he's a very good guy, nice person, like smart business leader, owner, whatever. He's not the guy who if you go work for him, you get, oh, this is the worst fucking boss in the world. Like, no, he's a very like nice guy, and he's very fair, and he pays very well. And he's gone through about 10 different videographers, mostly because their quality sucks. But and it's like you can't find good talent for like 70 grand in South Florida for some reason. Anyway, he hires some guy on a W-2 full-time videographer. The guy signs the contract, and he comes into work. And the first day of work, he's like, I need more money. I've never in my life signed like an employment agreement, and then after I've signed the employment agreement said I need more money. I'm like, you're stupid. If you want more money, you negotiate before you sign the agreement, not after. This is not like a contractor. This is a W-2 employee, like full-time employee. I know you're Canadian. W-2 is a very American. Yeah, I say it now because I'm down here. Got to talk American, but like, it's like you are no more RRSPs down here, right? Like, it's a 401k, but no, it's like it's full-time employment. It's just full-time employment. You don't renegotiate that. You'll get a job. Go get a salaried job. You don't renegotiate that after in the first week of your job. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Actually,
Minimum
what's wrong
work.
with you? Yeah. Wait till you've done some work. Anyways, that's one thing that pisses me off. I don't understand that concept at all. To me, it's just like someone.
That's from an entitlement state.
I think it's entitlement, but it's entitlement plus stupidity, which is probably like the worst kind of person.
Yeah.
Because if you were smart and entitled, you would apply for a job, and before you sign the contract, you'd say, actually, I want to make this amount of money. And then the hiring person can be like, yes or no. If they think, like, I've negotiated salaries before, I've gotten jobs before, it's like, fine. But not after, not in the first week. And the other thing that I think you mentioned is really smart is about AI and people not having to do the work themselves. So I notice this because I use AI in my post-production and some of my content. And AI, I mean, like, what do a lot of people use it for? Are use it for the same thing, for writing. A lot of people use it for writing. And AI is getting very good. And if you take, for example, if we record a podcast, or if I even just record into a mic, and then if I've written pieces in the past and I like that writing style, and I can go into a generative chat tool or an LLM, and I can take the writing style that I like, and I can take the context that I want to speak about. And I say record into a mic so that it's not just like a simple one-line prompt, but if it's like a topic with context, like it's a significant amount of information about a certain topic, I can feed the LLM. If I take that plus the writing style and put it in, I could have some tweets, I could have some posts, like social posts, I could have caption, I could have newsletter, I could have blogs, all coming from like that particular input. And I can create unlimited content with that input. And I don't really have to do a lot of thinking and creative writing anymore. But when I do that, I notice that I never realized how much writing helped me think, helped me communicate, helped me pull thoughts quicker. And when I don't write for a significant period of time, I feel like I'm getting dumber. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I just feel like I'm getting dumber when I don't write. And I think that writing is just something that just stimulates your brain to think in a different way. It's different than just consuming YouTube videos, for example. But I now force myself to actually write my newsletters because I find that allows me to aggregate all the thoughts and all the things that I've learned in my life, and then find a way to articulate them and sort of feed them back and make sure that I actually understand them, which I think, like you mentioned before, is the real way that you can tell if you've learned something. But if I don't do that, I find that I just get dumber. And I mentioned another example. I interview a lot of people, and people that have had success and are in like the process of building right now. And then also people that have sold companies like 5 or 10 plus years ago. And the people that have sold companies years ago, listen, they're not stupid, obviously. But if you listen to when they were in the process of building a company versus 5 or 10 years into retirement, they are not as sharp as when they were currently every day building things and dealing with problems and basically just operating. So the less you do and the more that you outsource, or the more you're removed from the work, it impacts your brain. It impacts your cognitive performance. And I think that's something that people have to be careful of, because I'm saying this is, again, you said this very well, like, I'm a grown ass adult. My brain is fully formed, and I'm feeling and seeing the effects of this. Whereas somebody who is not, their brain is not fully formed, if they're already lazy and they're already not taking school seriously, because again, I talk shit about like the traditional education system all the time, but it's better than nothing. It's definitely better than nothing. Like I'd rather you go through university than not do any sort of personal development, professional development, education, or anything like that. But if you are just outsourcing all of your work and your learning to AI, I think that you're going to end up with a pretty stupid society. And that's more concerning than anything. People just get lazy with it. Now, there's the argument to say that like if you use AI, you can, for the first pass at creativity, then you can sort of take it to you can sort of refine it, and you can do the last mile of creative work. But I think that you still have to force yourself to think and do hard work and solve hard problems, and not just use AI as this crutch.
This gets into actually a very scary topic of what could happen potentially with the entire world. And it gets into some like conspiracy theories type thing.
Okay, let's do it.
But
What are the conspiracies?
so I might take a topic that's completely out of left field from this conversation. But if you look at the pyramids in Egypt and how they're one of the wonders of the world, and it's because of how they were built was so unbelievable in terms of putting these massive ton bricks that even with today's technology would be very, very difficult to create. And that could potentially be because they had technology that was completely different, but on a higher scale or unique to what we have today. And then it was completely eradicated somehow. And so that's similar to like where we're at today, where, this new generation and even my generation, potentially even your generation, don't have the skill sets of the foundational building blocks to get up to the technology level that we have today. And there's fundamental building blocks that evolution built on top of. So for example, this new generation is just learning about AI, for example. So they're going to know how to use AI better than anybody else. But do they know how to even build the systems that created AI? And then before that, do they even know how to build computers that build the systems that build AI? And then do they know how to build the code that build the systems that all of these things build on top of each other? It's like with farming, basically. People don't even know how to farm anymore. And nobody's even like creating their own food. And so, for example, if there was a worldwide EMP that wiped out all technology, which like there's technology for EMPs that could do a worldwide EMP.
If there was another war, that'd be a strategic move by a country.
Yeah. What would happen to every single person? Every single person would just be beside themselves, not knowing what to do.
I mean, podcasting isn't useful in a world where there's no electricity, and I don't know how to farm. I think what happens is, and you have, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the knowledge and wisdom and wealth is then hyper concentrated in a small group of people that understand how, like in farming, people still farm, but who makes the most money? Like huge conglomerates. Yeah. Now it's not the individual farmer because there's less and less of them. And in technology, well, there's going to be a very like small select group of people that understand how to code and how to build. And I think that wealth and knowledge is just going to be more concentrated. And I don't think that's actually a good thing. I would hope that technology allows people to explore and learn and be proficient, whatever, like you mentioned, like not just in using AI, but building AI and building the whole supply chain of AI. But you have to make sure that people aren't lazy for that to happen, because they have the opportunity to, but are they actually using it? I don't know. I think that people are ambitious. I think people are not I think that, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, because I know that more people are entrepreneurs than before. And that's sort of like a counterpoint to people being lazy. Why are more people entrepreneurs than ever before? I don't think entrepreneurship is lazy, but then I also see like somebody who is trying to get a 9-to-5 and they're talking about quiet quitting or whatever it is. So then that person's skewing lazy. So why are some people more ambitious and why are some people more lazy? And I don't have an answer for you. I just noticed that there's like extremes on both ends. Maybe because people don't want to be, maybe because life is expensive and people don't want to be stuck in the middle. It's kind of like you either want to be ultra rich and wealthy or you just want to live off government handouts. and there is no more middle class, which is a sign of like a failing nation. That could also be.
That's a sign of a third world country, is when there's no middle class.
You have these two extremes.
Yep.
I think that's, this is not a political podcast, but as I said it, I think that's actually very interesting how people like try and skew to one or the other. Because I think that the middle class is starting to disappear. Middle class now, like what's middle class? Making even like $100,000 in most cities. What is that after tax? In Canada, you make $100,000, taxes like what, 50-some%. Can't remember what it is now.
Same as New York. Like you live in New York, you make $100,000 per year, like you're poor.
So you have to go one of two directions. Am I going to try and bust my ass for $100,000 because that's no longer, middle class doesn't exist with $100,000 anymore? Or am I just going to like vote for like a more socialist country that like gives me some handouts? It gives me, like minimum, what's this, like a guaranteed salary or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember the term now. I'm blanking on the term, but you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So am I just going to focus on like moving to a country that's just going to pay me just to exist? Or am I going to try and break out and become somebody who's worth tens of millions of dollars because I see it all over Instagram? I don't know what prompts somebody to go in one direction versus the other. It's probably taking it back to how they were raised and a lot of the shit they went through as a kid.
It's also them thinking maybe that they're not capable of it.
There's a story about you finding a mentor as you were young, and there's a Canadian mentor that you had found who I think has passed away now. What was his name?
Stefan Arnio.
Stefan. Now, as part of that story, you actually said, I think your mom introduced you to him. So going back to, I found this point interesting after understanding your relationship with your mom. And maybe this will lead to how you've evolved as an entrepreneur and a human. So there was a point where you became close with your mother again, to the point where you're spending time with her, you're trying to repair a relationship. Why was that?
When my dad got full custody when I was 9, we started seeing our mom under supervised visits from the age of 9, basically, until I was 18, where I was able to make my own decisions. And so when I was 18, I saw my mom unsupervised and was basically just, trying to maintain a relationship. I didn't necessarily need her as a mom anymore. I was 18 and I was living on my own, started up my own business. And so I was more so doing it because I felt it was a duty and felt like it was good to maintain a relationship with your parents somewhat. And so that's kind of what it was. It's like we would go out once a week, maybe a couple times a week to lunch and just, talk about life. And that was one time we were out for lunch and there was the person sitting behind us talking about just ripping into his social media team and being like, my social media managers suck. They're horrible. And then my mom overheard that. And when he was walking past, she asked, so I heard you were talking about your social media team. He's like, yeah, they're horrible. And then she's like, my sons are actually great at social media.
We're spending time with your mom. Your dad got full custody. You try and sort of repair a relationship with your mom. And then you get over this like $300,000 hurdle. So like, it seems like at that point, like sort of like the trauma in your life is sort of like fixed and managed at least, right? Like it seems like all the shit that you've gone through growing up, you sort of found a way to deal with it to a degree.
Found a way to deal with it in an unhealthy way.
Yeah. So,
for sure.
So then this is, after you've paid your family off, how many years ago was that?
Yeah. So this kind of gets into what we were talking about previously of like why I went into therapy 10 months ago. And this kind of like where it all, meets a point. So I was in a relationship with a girl, I won't name her, for 2.5 years. And we were living together for pretty much all 2.5 years. And this gets into an amazing component of, how so many people in entrepreneurship, all they do is focus on the business side of things and they don't talk about other aspects of their life when those other aspects of their life could not be going well. And so I was in this relationship where I was pretty bonded to this girl. Like over 2.5 years, we only spent 3 days apart from one another.
So this is like significant, like
very significant. Yeah. I had problems, huge problems of even thinking about not being with her all the time, even though like being with somebody for that long without periods of breaks is so unhealthy. And so it got to a point of where I was basically working all of the time, pretty much the same way that I was working back when I was in debt. Very, very long hours, like second I woke up to the second I went to sleep, where I wouldn't even go down to eat. And this girl would like be bringing me food basically. And I would have like short interactions with.
Still because of anxiety?
This was for very similar reasons, but yes, anxiety based. But what it was is the same reasons of wanting to numb things out. So I was wanting to numb myself out to reality, and work was always my safe space. And so there was problems within our relationship. And instead of addressing them head on and addressing these problems, I would just numb myself out with work. And what it was it was like in the mindset of being like, if I'm able to work to solve my problems, at least I'm being productive. That's what was always going on in my head. But in reality, like what you need to do is you just need to address problems face on. And you just need to live an authentic life. And that will give you all the happiness that you want. And so at the end of 2.5 years, this was last year, around this time, I realized that this relationship wasn't going in the direction that I wanted to. And so I broke things off.
Why was it not going in the direction? Like it was something that you could not fix just by having hard conversations?
Yeah, it's a great question, because it's like I'm of the belief system now that like most things you can get through with difficult conversations if both people are willing to change, and if both people have the capacity to change, and if both people have the capacity of wanting to have the relationship work. And so like, I don't believe in the perfect person anymore. I don't believe that there's like a perfect soulmate out there for you. I believe that there's people who are good for you and people who really like you and are willing to grow in life together, basically. And so this was a situation where a hard conversation wouldn't do it. It was stuff from the past that I just wasn't able to get over. And that was probably my detriment for a lot of it.
Your past or her past?
Her past. Yeah. And then it's because it wasn't really in the past, it was still in the present. And hard to explain. But basically,
No, yeah, it's fair.
yeah, I won't go too much into it. But basically, it wasn't where a hard conversation could get past. So I decided to end things. And it was literally the hardest thing that I've probably ever done in my entire life. Harder than going through $300,000 in debt. I literally was I went into a very, very, I don't want to say depression, because like depression is like where you can't really acknowledge where the feelings are coming from. But I was going into a very dark place for a period of time, very sad. I was crying every single day. It was very, very difficult. And then that's what led me to find a therapist.
Sorry, bro. I didn't know that. That's very shitty, because on the surface, like it looked like this was like the perfect match, because like not many people can deal with somebody that works that much. That's like that alone is like a special kind of person, somebody who's like cool with you actually putting that much time into your business. It's just tough. It's just tough. I agree with you. I think most people have to, no one's perfect. There is no perfect match. You have to grow together. I totally believe that. I totally believe that. But you have to know that and find the person that also believes that before you start dating. You can't, not like one person can't discover that as you're dating and then like try and take the other person along for the ride. I think that's difficult. And the therapy was, but I think at this point, like the therapy you mentioned before was like kind of like for a relationship, but I don't know your whole life. I just know a little bit of it, but I feel like there's like a lot that was wrapped into that therapy that is probably going to make you like feel so much lighter on the other side of it.
So much. I think that every single person should get therapy, no matter where you're at.
You always believe that?
No, just once I got therapy, every single person should get therapy. 1000% should be talking with a therapist that they connect with and that is very, very educated for a long period of time. It's like a coach, basically. And yeah, I've had extreme benefits from it, and not just the relationship side of things, in many different. When I was a kid, and pretty much all the way up until I got therapy, I was so confused constantly. I always felt in a state of confusion, not just about emotions, about a lot of things, like things that were going on inside my head, inside my body. I always felt confused that I wasn't able to answer things myself. Emotions was definitely a huge thing. Like I would feel anxious and be like, why am I feeling anxious right now? And I wouldn't be able to answer it. I'm feeling stressed. Why am I feeling stressed? I'm feeling fearful. Why am I feeling
That's like I think most people.
Yeah.
I think that's most people.
Yeah. And I watched Inside Out too.
Yeah.
And it was very, very good how that movie deconstructed and like put in very simple terms how people feel emotions. And so that movie really got to me for sure.
I feel like after I actually have a question, because I've actually tried to find like therapists before, and I've had bad luck. I've had bad luck with my personality. Not that I'm like a bad personality, but I'm also somebody that's working like 14 hours, whatever, 12, 14 hours, working nonstop basically. And I have a hard time finding somebody who's a therapist who understands that. Like and for me, it's like so obvious. Like this is like the season of my life right now. I enjoy it. It's my job, dude. I enjoy this so much fun. But I don't mind putting like 14 hours. But if I had a kid, I wouldn't want to be doing this for 14 hours a day. Like there's a different season to my life now. But I've always had a hard time finding somebody who's a therapist who sort of gets the type A entrepreneur personality. I think I've never found one. And that's actually been super frustrating. But you said you found one, and it was like a one-time, like first shot good, or no?
No, definitely not. No, so I treated finding therapists like hiring inside the business. And so it's the Alex Hormozy and Layla Hormozy approach that you do like 100 interviews, like you get 100 resumes, and then you treat the interview process like the learning process. So a therapist is a bit more difficult because, people aren't submitting resumes to work for you. So you do have to pay a significant amount of money where you're doing like intro sessions with people. But I just did multiple intro sessions with lots of people, did lots of research on various people. And I had the exact same thing of resonating with somebody that was a business owner. And so I found a therapist that was actually an influencer. And so has a very significant following on social media, runs his own business, and then is very expensive, obviously, because he's a business owner that is a therapist, but
He still gets it.
is able to resonate with it heavily.
Yeah. What was the thing that made you like him versus anyone else? Like, what did he say? What was like so I think like a lot of entrepreneurs probably need therapy, but I think probably a lot of people listening will have the same problem as both of us.
That's a very, very good question. What made him really stand out at the beginning? I think what made him really stand out at the beginning is that most therapists, and when you think of therapy, it's them asking you questions. And I didn't need that at the start. I didn't need to be asked a bunch of questions because I was very confused and I didn't even know how to answer certain things authentically. And he was asking me, like therapists usually ask your emotions around certain topics and like how you feel around certain things. And these therapists weren't fucking getting like that. I don't know how to feel these things. Like, I don't know what I'm feeling right now. Like and then I needed a therapist who was basically giving me variations of answers that I could say yes or no to, and I could tie myself to, and help like go through the progress of learning. And so this particular therapist, like when we talk about particular subjects, he is explaining it heavily. So I'm getting to understand it. It's like basically where he's like a teacher instead of just listening to me and asking questions that I could ask myself, or that I could go onto ChatGPT and ask myself.
Exactly. Yeah. You need somebody to actually explain like context around like what, and you said like, and I think this is also true, not just with entrepreneurs, you said you have like a hard time understanding like why you feel a certain thing at a certain point. I think most people just kind of go through life being very reactive to their emotions, especially again, entrepreneurs. Like they have like this mental fortitude that allows them to get through these emotions. But I'd be lying if I said that every day isn't like a fucking roller coaster. But yeah, I can get through it, and I can still like, perform at a high level. But I don't really love the fact that I have to do that, even if I'm stressed or anxiety or angry or whatever. And sometimes you don't even know where it's fucking coming from, because you have, over the past week, I can't even remember all the things that went right and went wrong. And you don't know what was the one thing that triggered that particular emotion, but you're just kind of going through life like, whatever. I know that I'm stressed about something, but I don't even have time to think about what that thing is. I have 100 other things I got to figure out right now. So when you go through this process, talk to me like sort of like the end results. It's been 10 months, it's been like a couple months. So what's sort of changed, like the before and after as like an entrepreneur? Is like, you have another girlfriend now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I meet her yet or no?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they can't remember.
Yeah.
So yeah. So like, explain like the after, because I think, again, I love this, dude. This is so good for entrepreneurs to have a conversation about mental health and therapy and everything.
It's very little talked about in this industry.
I know it isn't talked about a lot. And I'll tell you a story and then I want you to answer. I had a friend on who, again, it's all entrepreneurs that come on the show, and he told me a story about one of his friends that had a company, that 100-person company, and it was in real estate, and it's great. You had 100 people, like a decent sized, like tens of millions of dollars in this company. And I think it was something to do with the real estate settlement, or something to do with like the lawsuit around how realtors show houses and get commissions. I'm not in real estate, so I don't know this, but there's like a whole thing about like NAR, and like there was like a couple lawsuits. Anyway, so it was going to like significantly impact his business. He didn't do anything wrong, but he saw that this was going to impact like how his business functioned and how much he could make and his margins. Basically, it would like fundamentally shift how he did business. Anyways, so like the settlement came out, or the lawsuit came out, or the result of the lawsuit came out. And then on Friday, he laid off 100 people.
No.
And then he killed himself.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Seriously, very serious. He killed himself the day after he laid off his entire company. And in his mind, his whole identity was wrapped up in his business. And the guy who told me this story is a good friend. His name's Colin Campbell. He's a Canadian entrepreneur. He didn't name me the name of his friend, but you listen to the podcast, I'll tell you the story himself. But yeah, so he killed himself because his identity was so wrapped in his business, and he felt like he was letting so many people down. He could not deal with it. And this guy has more money than 99% of the world, right? And he killed himself. So it's fucked up. And it wasn't because he did anything wrong. It was because he couldn't manage living on this earth, disappointing 100 people. It's very sad.
Man, that hits. That's so sad. It's something I work on heavily with my therapist, where I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to this, of a feeling of only being loved and getting attention when you have accomplishments in life. And it's something that comes from childhood, of where you either only got attention or you only felt love from your parents. Whether it's true or not, if feelings are feelings, you felt this way. And so it was a reason you felt this way. And so you felt the only way you could be loved by other people is if you performed. And I had this tremendously, of I felt that I was only worthy of love if I performed and if I was successful, whatever that meant in my eyes of being successful. And in reality, what parents are supposed to do and how you're supposed to feel as a child is that the world loves you and your parents love you, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter what you are, no matter what you become. And they just love you for being. We're human beings. We're supposed to just be and be loved for being, and has nothing to do with what we are tied to. And I'm not fixed by any means. It's been 10 months, but I'm starting to get to a place of where the stuff that I do inside of my work is separate from the person that I am.
I experienced something this past weekend which actually threw me off a little bit. And I don't want this to sound like people that is like entrepreneurs just bitching about how they're perceived in the world. But I'm going to tell you something that happened to me that actually threw me off. So I was at this event, and a great event, but I've noticed that as I do better in my life and my business, and I put my name out there more, people also start to look at you as a little bit of a commodity. And what I mean by that is, so I went on stage a couple times and spoke and taught and whatever. And then after the session, people would come up and like ask like very tactical advice for their business. And like, I have this problem, how do I solve it? And then like after I answered those questions, like nobody talked to me. And I'm just sitting there. Like nobody like on that like a casual conversation and just like see like how's like life, like what's going on. It's like everybody was like, how do I extract information from this like little walking business encyclopedia? And it was like kind of like shitty. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, it threw me off.
Yeah.
It actually really threw me off because I haven't just, and I think the reason why I noticed it is because I was hanging out all day. And again, like I don't mind this. I love teaching people, but I haven't really hung out all day at a conference in a long time. Usually like when you go to speak, you go, you speak, you leave usually. And it was really just like, cause I was there all day that I noticed it after about, spoke, but like the whole, like a lot of the room, it wasn't like a huge session, like about like 30 people asked me questions. And then after they asked me questions, it's like, we're good. We don't need Scott anymore. It was just interesting.
Shit, man.
It was just really,
Sorry.
no, it was just like, and I was laughing. Gina's like, so this is what celebrities feel like. Like after they take, it was like actually like after a couple people like took a picture with me, and then I was like trying to talk, and they're like, no, I'm busy.
But that can reinforce the belief system.
I know it can reinforce a belief system, and again, it's hard to like explain. Because someone's like, oh, you're cool. Someone took a picture with you. Why are you bitching about that? And it's not that. It's because at the end of the day, like sometimes like you still just want to like have like casual conversations and not feel like somebody's just throwing up a picture of you because they like your podcast, they like your speech, or you gave them like a great piece of business advice. And they're like, okay, I'm done with that guy. I don't know, just shitty.
Yeah.
It was just weird. It was a very fucking weird feeling because usually if you're
You haven't experienced that before?
never,
Oh, wow.
never experienced that before.
Uh-huh.
because I've only really started speaking at conferences in the past like year and a half. And before that, the podcast wasn't big. I didn't get like recognized ever. So this was like a different feeling for me where people recognized me from the show. And then they wanted like a very tactical like thing from me, as opposed to me just going to a conference as like an attendee and me just being like part of like the mass of people just going to the conference. Very different dynamic. It was very, very strange. It was weird. It was fucking weird, dude. I'm not gonna lie. It was very strange. It felt like you were super pigeonholed into like a very specific kind of person, and because that's how people saw you, they wouldn't see you as anything else. I don't know. It was strange, but I don't know if you've ever experienced that at all. But I guess if people like,
I've experienced aspects of that, and it's similar to what we're talking about. That's why you went into that.
yeah, because like growing up, I didn't feel the pressure that you did about performance. I don't think. Maybe a little bit from my dad, but not really. But now I'm feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'll tell you something. Like when you have so the podcast is something that everybody wants to get on. It's very interesting to understand like who wants to like talk to you because they like you versus who wants to talk to you just because they want to eventually get on your show. And I'm assuming it's the same with people, like, again, the people that I know that are worth like hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't even fucking know how they make new friends. It would be so stressful to me to make new friends because you don't know who's genuine. You have no idea who's genuine. Like, I don't know how, I don't have a playbook on how to do that. I'm sure if I did this for the next 30 years, I'd figure it out, but I don't have a playbook on if you have like achieved some success, how to have like a filtering system as to who's full of shit and who's not.
I don't think there is a filtering system with that. Man, but speaking about friends, this is something I work on heavily with my therapist, where like I looked at my life and I realized that all throughout my life, I never really had any like real like best friends besides my two brothers. And in family, it doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't necessarily count. And
That's another issue. You want to talk about like problems with technology? That's a big problem.
for sure. Yeah, making genuine connections with people.
That's a huge problem. Do you like, I mean, you work with your brothers.
And you left the US to go to Puerto Rico. You asked me before, like, would you ever think about Puerto Rico? I don't want to like give up on like building like a great community and network and friends. And like, yeah, there's tactical reasons for a show why I want to be 10 minutes from Miami airport. But at the same time, like, there's a lot of ways you can make money in this world. If I wasn't doing it with this podcast, I'm sure I could figure out another business, because I have in the past, right? But I don't know if I want to go like live like in some remote part of the world for like tax reasons. Do you not feel like isolated and shit? Like, how do you manage? Like, I mean, like, you have your family. I would love my brother to work with me.
Yeah.
Trust. I would love my brother. Like, he doesn't know yet. But he's in law school right now. It'd be very useful, actually. Yeah, him to work with me. But no, eventually he will. But like, I think that's why family businesses are great. But yeah, we have some friends, but it's like, yeah, it's the friends that I have actually are people that don't need me for whatever reason. They've had success. They've made their money. It's not like there's like they don't need anything from me. I think that's the best kind of friendship.
Yeah.
Because when you're as an adult, I think people, especially in Miami, dude, a lot of people want something from you. It's just it's like tiring. It's like filter through all the bullshit.
Man, it is something about Puerto Rico. Like it's just me and my brothers, and then also like one of our employees. Well, two of our employees who are out there in the same area.
With your employees.
Yeah. Well,
you can be close with them.
Close.
But at the end of the day, it's still like a business relationship.
It's definitely more of a business relationship. But we saw Puerto Rico as temporary play. Yeah. Like not necessarily, raising a family out in Puerto Rico. And so, yeah, maybe always having a home base out there and then having other homes outside. But yeah, definitely like hopefully before I get to the 30s that I get a place that,
don't forget you're so young.
Get a place in the States and meet people. But you asked a question about therapy that I wanted to make sure to
know. I want to talk about it. Sorry, I got into my own shit. And like that. This is what happens when you start opening up. I'm like, now I have all this like shit that I gotta get off my. I do need a therapist. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
No, it was good. It was good. I'm glad you shared that. Well, because you asked the question about therapy in terms of like what were the benefits or like what.
Who are you after therapy? I think this is like from a point of view. Like obviously, I just realized that like sometimes if you are any type of whatever success is successful, it starts to become a little bit lonely. And I just like experienced it like in the past 48 hours. So to some degree, not significant, but like a little bit. So what would be the result of like working through some of your shit? Like you spoke to a therapist past 10 months, like who's like Luke after?
The top things that I've experienced from therapy would be one, just having more clarity of my emotions in general.
Yeah.
And so when I feel something, I'm usually able to attribute it to something. If I feel not worthy, if I feel anxious, I'm usually able to tie it back to even a thought of childhood where it's not necessarily truly myself. And it gives me a lot of relief where it's like, I know how to fix this inside of my head and I know how to deal with this. And it's normal that I'm feeling this way, basically. The second one is inside of a relationship, communicating just completely authentically. If I feel a certain type of way, there's a reason why I'm feeling that way. And if I'm trying to be in relationship with somebody else, I need to just articulate why I'm feeling that way and work through it with that other person, like with my significant other. And I'm not perfect by any means. When I'm communicating, I'm still absolutely horrible at it. The thing that I've gone past though, is that when I feel a certain type of way, I communicate it. I need to work on how I communicate that way better.
We're here. So you communicate it, but like the way you're doing it could be rough or like.
Way I communicate is very rough. Yeah, very, very rough. But at least I'm communicating, so I'm making progress. But I'm going to work on that because it makes the other person feel a certain type of way. Obviously, when you communicate, it makes them feel not good enough, makes them feel unworthy, and you don't want somebody that you love to feel that way. And so those are definitely the two biggest things from therapy that I've experienced.
How has it helped? I mean, now you look at like your life, you run a great business, you have a girlfriend. How has it just helped the dynamic between like work and life? And not like, I don't like the term work-life balance because everything is integrated when you're building something. There is no cutoff point for work. But how has it sort of helped the health of the relationship, compare it? And how does that help the relationship, help with work and all of that?
Well, it hasn't just helped in my relationship with like the girl that I'm with, but also helped with my relationship with my brothers, where my brothers have definitely had an aspect of being trauma bonded together with what we went through within our childhood. And so we had very hard time being independent of one another. And so this is something we're actively working on right now because, we're all getting older. Like my older brother is turning 28. And so we're going to be starting families like within the next 5 years, probably all of us. And so it's a good idea for us to be independent of one another, even though we run a business together, just because it makes it easier for families, and it's not healthy for, people of our age to be completely dependent upon one another. So things like when we traveled, we always like had to travel together. We shared bank accounts with everything. The money situation between us wasn't fully transparent. There was tons of things that weren't
So interesting
independent.
how like that could be like, it's so wild how like everything that it's like it could be a negative, also could be a positive, because that trust you have between your brothers for business is phenomenal. Like you can't get that. You're not gonna fucking share a bank account with an employee. Like you can't get that level of trust to anyone else. But now you're realizing like, okay, so like there's some things that are great, some things that have to be fixed.
There are pros and cons about everything, man. Honestly, everything. And this gets into deeper stuff of like ultimately what is the meaning of life and stuff. But it's like, I think it's just a constant progression of working towards being a better version of yourself.
I want your take on this. Why do we have such shitty male role models? And why do all of them focus on kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, let's like look at Tate as an example.
Andrew Tate?
Yeah, let's look at Tate as an example of like a current, in my opinion, not great male role model. It's kind of like he focuses on the end result of being a better man, but the process, like I find that there's no steps. It's almost just like be better, like snap your fingers and be better, or not even be better, because that's really not his message. But he's like, be stronger, be more powerful, make more money, whatever it is, be in better shape. But I feel like the average male role model now is like just painting this picture of what a man should be, and they're not actually helping men get there. And I don't really understand why that is, because when you talk about your journey and you talk about going through therapy, and some people, I think everybody could at some point talk to somebody, whether or not it's like a therapist or they have like a network around them of people that are helping them go through shit. And you talk about like fixing yourself so you operate better in your business and your relationship, and you want to get married and have kids, and you want to fix like relation with your family. Like that to me is like a healthy version of a man going through life and figuring their shit out. I don't see a lot of people having these conversations, and I don't see a lot of male role models like sort of like preaching this stuff. And I'm just curious if you think you have an idea as to why that is.
I think it's a couple reasons. There's the reason of why these role models are preaching the things that they are, like Andrew Tate and stuff. And then there's the reason why people are so attracted to listening to that. So I think all these people, like if you look at Andrew Tate, Dan Bilzerian, any of these like massive like male role models, so to speak, that are celebrities, influencers, and have attracted a huge audience, I think they do it from a place of that's very, very ego fueled for the most part, extremely ego fueled. And their ego comes out when they're explaining everything. I can experience that firsthand. Like I felt that I wasn't good enough, and felt that I was only good if I was seen as successful in other people's eyes, only worthy of love and attention if I was seen as successful in other people's eyes. And so that's when I got my first piece of success. I bought a Lamborghini. And even though it was a horrible purchase, horrible business decision, horrible decision for like my future, wealth, I did it from the standpoint of I wanted people to look at me when I was driving through the city. I wanted people to look at me and stare at me and be like, wow, that guy's cool. And have that attention that I felt like I was in desperation of. And I think that's a standpoint where these people come from. In terms of why
They don't give you a playbook for it either.
yeah,
They just talk about the end result. Like Dan Bilzerian is like, oh, just get jacked, and then like you'll have like a whole bunch of like OF models on your yacht. Like there's not even telling people how to get there. It's just like, I'm the ideal, figure it out, which is stupid. First of all, it's a shitty ideal, but it's still stupid.
horrible ideal.
I know. And he's even now,
He's going back on it. He's talking about monogamy. Dan Bilzerian is literally explaining, he's like, with all the stupid as shit, like honestly, but he's saying, with all the women that I slept with, thousands of different women, I actually think that monogamy is the answer.
so silly.
Well, of course it is.
Yeah, I know, because nobody wants to feel like empty their whole life with no actual relationships that matter.
Yeah. You want to be building something with purpose, with one individual, and the person who you choose as like your relationship and your significant other is the biggest decision you have in your entire life. And these people who cheat and are with so many different women, they're just trying to fill an empty void inside of them. And men who cheat, I've been around lots of men who cheat, and I always ask them, I'm like, why do you cheat? And like, how do you cheat? Like, how is it even possible inside of your conscious and stuff? And they literally just bury down the feelings and they justify it within their head. Like their woman made them feel a certain type of way, and it justifies why that they're able to cheat and stuff. But going into like why Andrew Tate and Dan Bilzerian have been able to get so big, it's because they sell the dream outcome. They're great salespeople at the end of the day. And so when you look at selling, like the Alex Hormozy approach is that in the selling, you're selling the vacation. You're not selling the destination to getting there. And that's exactly what these people are doing. They're just selling like this dream vision of this fantasy land.
Not that I want to like always just do the cliche, like take a lesson out of like, Tate's playbook, but you're in social, social very well. Your brother is phenomenal. Your brother like studies this shit every single day too. Does he like read like documentation on like different social platforms, like try and like reverse engineer algorithms and shit like that?
No, but he watches a lot of content.
Yeah. The question I had was like, I mean, are there lessons that we can learn from like their content?
From Andrew Tate and stuff? Well, of course, there's infinite amount of lessons that
like things that are not like rage bait that the average person could like try and understand how to use that in their own content.
Well, Andrew Tate's approach was very, very unique. That's why it blew up. So there's three reasons why any piece of content goes viral, like in terms of topics that things go on. So if you're posting on social media, the piece of content either has to be entertaining, educational, or inspirational. Those are the three topics of any single piece of social media content. And the ones that go the most viral have a combination of all three of some sort. And so that's what Andrew Tate was giving, is he was giving the inspirational, talking about like this dream outcome for people to go to. It was entertaining because he's actually very funny. It is hilarious. And then it's somewhat educational, because even though if it's not actually educational, where he fabricates a lot of data and says a bunch of, a lot of stuff that's completely fake in terms of statistics and stuff, then it comes across as educational. So a lot of his content hits all three pillars. And so that's basically the biggest thing that could be taken away from his content.
That's why. So that's why it keeps going viral. So but that's really the framework that people have to learn from.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The last thing that I thought would be interesting, just because like it's sort of like tying like all the things that you've learned over your life right back to business and things. We're trying to figure out how to grow our business, make money, all that shit. Do you find that like having a steady relationship is helpful to you, like as a business person, as a business owner?
For sure. 1000%. Yeah. Having a steady relationship keeps you grounded in a place where business is so much uncertainty, basically, on a day-to-day basis. Even if you're doing well, there's so much uncertainty. That's basically what you're accepting with entrepreneurship, is all of the unknowns that comes with it. And so having a relationship that's committed and certain is a very freeing feeling. Also, just the energy that you're putting into something. It's the same thing as a business, that, having a focus on one business in one specific industry allows you to catapult way faster than having your focus spread across multiple businesses. Having your focus on one woman instead of many different women allows you to just progress in that relationship and progress in yourself way better.
What would be one more, either it could be one more thing you'd like to teach to the audience, or one more like beliefs that you have that you think that, you know, the audience gets wrong, like a very commonly held, like a belief is commonly held that you think is incorrect. Could be a business, marketing, life, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well,
you're fun to chat with. So yeah, we could probably do this all day. Yeah, literally.
This is a cliche and it's said all the time, but if you can truly instill this of you only lose if you quit, like truly instill it, like it's such a relieving and peaceful feeling. Like I've genuinely instilled this, that you only lose if you quit. And I never quit. I never have, and I never will quit. And so it's literally impossible for me to lose. And it really is. And over the course of business, like if you were literally doing business every single day, the skill sets that you were building inside a business become invaluable. Skill sets that you build in life are the one thing that can't ever be taken from you. If you get thrown in jail, if you get deported, if you get taxed for your entire life, if you go bankrupt, your skill sets are still there. And so people who are going into business now, I think should have a focal point of what are the most high value skill sets that I can learn. They should detach from like any monetary value that they should do and how big that they want to grow, how much money that they want to make, and literally just look at what are the most high value skill sets I can learn over the next 5 to 10 years. And it's impossible for you to lose. I think about literally, it's impossible for our company to fail now. It would be impossible. We would have to do so many crazy things for it to fail.
Well, but you could also, to define failure, that means that you've stopped.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. 100%. But say we did stop in the business and everything got completely shut down to business. The skill sets that I have right now, that I've built purely from building the business, I could go to any single company with my resume and my skill sets and get hired in seconds. I know exactly how to be the best interviewee to get hired inside of a company. I could get hired for a 6-figure job in 2 seconds easily. And that's just from the skill sets. And it's a very relieving and peaceful feeling knowing that that can't be taken away.
You know what you've done, which a lot of people have trouble with, is you trust yourself.
Yeah.
And it sounds so easy to say, but I think that so many people have problems trusting themselves. The people that are successful, that do take the most risk, they trust themselves explicitly. Like there's zero lack of, almost like to a point of delusion. Like, I'll figure it the fuck out. It doesn't matter what happens, I'll figure it out. But that's the attitude you have to have, because if you don't trust yourself, you take zero risk. But that, like, I've learned all these skills and I can go get a 6-figure job. I can start a new business. Who are you trusting to do that? It's you. And I think that's a powerful thing.
I made an entire 15-minute YouTube video just on confidence and how confidence is having trust in yourself. And then having trust in yourself is staying true to your word and your own commitment. And you build trust in yourself because you build trust in others by them saying certain things and following through with it. And then as soon as they say something that doesn't match up or that they lie about, that trust gets broken. Same thing that happens in your own head, where if you say something that you're going to do something, if you say you're going to go to the gym, if you say you're going to work on your business today and you don't do it, that trust that you've been building up for months gets broken because you've created that belief system that you don't trust yourself anymore.
If people can take one thing away from like sort of like all the lessons that you've learned over your life, your journey, even, you know, the harder times with your family, the therapy, the wins and the losses in the business, what would be, outside of just being confident, being yourself, being authentic, what would be like one last lesson that you want to leave people with? And I usually phrase it, I didn't phrase it this way because you're already young as hell. But I usually phrase it saying like, what would be one lesson you tell your younger self or your 20-year-old self? But just one lesson that you think is very useful.
Man, I don't want to say this because it's shit that Andrew Tate says, but there is a component of working out that I think is a massive benefit.
It's not a bad lesson.
Working out is a massive benefit to every single area of life. I started working out just by chance because my brother started working out in high school. So I started working out in grade 9 and I've been working out ever since. And so weight training. And so the benefits that I had from working on a consistent basis was I ate healthier because I didn't want to work out and then lose that. I was extremely dedicated. I was doing something very difficult other than business or other than anything in my personal life. I was staying committed to something. I was getting more confident because I was looking better. I was feeling better because just when you work on a consistent basis, you feel better. I think that any single person, no matter where they're at, whether they're successful, whether they're not successful, where they're young, should just start working out and be the first stepping stones to increasing their quality of life.
I think it's very, very smart advice. I mean, I'm kind of like you. I've been lifting. I used to play a lot of hockey, Canadian, but I've been lifting for forever. And it's probably like the one thing that has, outside of having like a really supportive better half or partner, that's the other thing that sort of like saved my mental health. Is when shit doesn't go right, like going to the gym and lifting, outside of all the derivative habit, like outside of all the other habits that come with like eating right and whatnot, and getting good sleep and making sure that you're healthy and not getting sick and right supplementation, those are all good things. But outside of that, it's like the act of beating yourself up in the gym is like the most therapeutic thing that most people can ever go. And on a biological level, there's a lot of benefits that will help you overcome stress and anxiety. But I think that that's outside of therapy. I think that that's probably one of the most useful things that many people could do.
It's also one thing that's very controllable, like the thing like of sleep. Sometimes people have insomnia and sometimes people can't control that. Working out every single day on a consistent basis, you can control. Every single person can find 30 minutes to an hour to work on a consistent basis. I actually started doing, a friend of mine, Chris Cavallini, I work out with him whenever I go to Tampa Bay. And he runs a nutrition company and he showed me a different style of workout for entrepreneurs. That's very, very quick. And he was explaining, it was hilarious. He was like, the average person goes to the gym and works out. The average person does, the set structure of basically where they do 3 sets, rest in between.
Which is what I do.
Yeah. And so he basically broke it down and he's like, okay, well, let's break down the average person that goes to the gym. So they do 3 sets of an exercise. And then how many different exercises do they do? 4 to 5 in the gym. So they do 3 sets of let's say 30 seconds of time under tension for each one of those. So you do 3 times 5, which is 15. So 15 different exercises, 3 sets of each, 15. And then 30 seconds for each one of those, 15. You're in the gym for 45 to 60 minutes on that. And your time under tension is only 7 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yeah. Accurate.
Yeah. 7 minutes and 30 seconds. And I was like, oh, wow. And so his workouts are basically where you're doing a combination of exercises where it's a form of like HIIT training, basically.
Is it like supersetting or more than that?
Huge supersets, basically. And you're supersetting the entire time and you're only taking breaks in between a superset of 5 different exercises. And so you're working out for about 22 minutes and your time under tension is about 18 minutes. And so you're getting 2 to 3 times more than the average person.
How does it does it work?
Yeah. The shirt doesn't really show it, but I'm pretty shredded for like,
No, but compared to traditional bodybuilding, so it works
for sure. It depends which. Well,
listen, I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. I'm just trying to say I want to look good.
Yeah,
in diet plays a huge part of that. But yeah,
huge thing about working out is like, what are your goals with it? Like there's and this is with diet too. Are you going for longevity? Are you going for looking as aesthetic as possible? Are you going for strength training? And so you have to assess like your goals so that you know the direction you want to go. For me, I'm trying to be as healthy as possible. I want to live the absolute longest. And then I'm trying to be aesthetic. The last thing I want is to be fat. Yeah. Like the worst thing that you could possibly be is like a billionaire that's fat.
What's the diet? Is it like HIIT training? So you're not doing low carb?
Yeah, I do high protein diet. And then I medium carbs, medium fat. Yeah. I don't count my calories at all, but I probably hit somewhere around like 3,000 to 3,500 calories. And
Good. Yeah, it's smart. I mean,
the main thing is just zero for diet, zero processed food, zero, like as minimal amount as possible. Like I will only have it as like a dessert on occasion, where like I would rather just have homemade ice cream, for example, if I'm going to do a dessert. But if you have zero processed food, like if you look back at videos in the 1900s, people weren't fat like they are today.
not yeah, like even like 1950, 1960, 1970. I was talking to a dude the other day, and he's like, "What was like the stereotypical American meal in like the 1950s? It's like a diner with like cheeseburger and milkshake. Yet no one's fat.
Yep.
But if we eat cheeseburgers and milkshakes now, everyone's fat as shit.
Yep.
So why is that? And it's all the garbage. And everyone says it. Like when I go to Europe, like I don't even work out and I lose weight. Dude, that's so concerning. That's actually so concerning. So first of all, I'm annoyed because you're telling me I can eat like whatever the fuck I want. If it wasn't processed, I could still like keep it off. I wouldn't like, get fat. But also what? Just because the US is like so bad at monitoring all these additives into your food, all this garbage, that now you're just putting on weight, like eating the same amount of calories as somebody did like, 40 years ago, same type of food, and now you're just turning obese. That's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Well, and then you have these influencers like Logan Paul, KSI, and Mr. Beast coming out with lunchies.
Yeah,
And they're just
do that.
completely processed food, just going for the amount of money that they're making.
But I don't know why they can't put out good food. I mean, even Prime is garbage. Not Prime. Yeah,
Prime hydrate.
yeah, Prime. Yeah, Prime is just sugar. It's so bad.
Garbage. It says that has coconut water in it when it's less than 10% coconut water. There's a million chemicals in it. It's horrible. For kids that are taking that down, that is disgusting.
And they have so much influence too.
Yep.
That's what's shitty.
And they're using that influence for that. Like when I raise kids, I'm going to be raising them on all organic foods, all whole foods. It's going to be dialed in. Even baby food is fucked.
Like I'd rather they not do like there's so many different kinds of products that you can launch. Yeah. That's what's annoying. Like there's like with their influence, they could launch any product they ever wanted. Why are they doing shitty food? Why don't you like anything, support any product, make your money. Like, make your bag. I don't give a shit. Just like, it's like, why was shitty food? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't know why they do that. I guess because maybe like this is what they're getting advised to do, or they feel like there's like a market for it or whatever. But
man, when I was at the aesthetic conference this weekend, there was this one speaker that was super sick. He was like Conor Varelius style, like talking about like all of the whole foods, like red meat, liver, like all of this important things. And then he runs a clinic of himself. And he said when people come into his clinic, he would ask them a very simple question that got them to tear up, basically. And these people who are coming to his clinic are usually pretty unhealthy, or they have problems with their body or wellness. And he just asked them a question. He's like, when's the last time you taking off your shoes, taking off your socks, and just walked in the grass? And it's crazy because like even me, when I think about it, I intentionally walk in the grass and I still only do it like once a week.
I don't really do it.
I know, it's crazy.
I do it. I mean, like the layout of this property, I literally have to walk in grass to get to this studio, but I don't take off my shoes, right?
And you're not getting the grounding benefits through your shoes.
No.
Uh-huh. And as kids, you're frolicking through the grass
all the time,
uh-huh.
all the time, and you don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, people like when I was living in a condo and I worked from home, there'd be like days where I wouldn't see sunlight. Like, yeah, it's not good. But this is like the environment that a lot of people live in now.
Uh-huh.
First of all, like if you don't force yourself to, and I still would go to the gym, and even going to the gym, I through a condo, you didn't actually have to go outside.
Yeah, you get in your
gym. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
Scary, man.
It is. It's interesting though, because like life expectancy is getting longer, but I don't think quality of life for a lot of people is increasing. So the U.S. health system is very reactive, not proactive. So they're keeping people alive. Great. But I don't think that people are thriving. I think that people are, their mental clarity, they're foggy. I think that testosterone is decreasing, infertility is increasing. Like all these things are showing that people are not actually, they're living, but they're not healthy. They're not living healthy. We found a way to keep people alive that aren't that healthy. So I think that it's not just about keeping people alive, but like how do we keep people alive and healthy and thriving and feeling good and not like feeling like shit every day, which is not normal, but I think people accept it as normal. And I'm not a doctor, but I like, even like you go to the gym, I go to the gym. I already feel like we're like light years ahead of society. Like every time like my mom, she tries to go to the gym. God bless her. I think she does a little bit more now. But I mean, every time I go, she's like, "You still working out?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like 4 times a week. And she like goes on and off, and she has like periods where she goes and she doesn't. And even that's better than most.
Yeah.
But I mean, people don't pay attention to what they put into their body. They don't lift. The health industry is just as fragmented as like the fucking online guru entrepreneur industry. Like I was trying to figure out which one's worse, like health gurus on Instagram or like entrepreneurs on Instagram and Lamborghinis. And I really don't know which one is worse, because they're both like, I'm the only person you should listen to. You should listen to no one else. Everyone else is wrong. I'm right. Like the internet created all these opportunities for information, but also disinformation and incorrect information and fragmented information. And it's like tribal ideology around different ideas. And I think that I think the average person just shuts off and is just confused and is just overwhelmed. And I'm getting 5 ideas on how to build a business from all these ClickFunnels gurus. And I'm getting 5 ideas on how to diet from all these health and wellness influencers on Instagram. And I don't know which one to do. So you know what? I'm not going to do anything. And that's also not useful.
The easiest way to diet, besides eliminating all processed foods, because eliminating all processed foods is for every single person. But outside of that, just listening to your body on what to eat. Our bodies are so smart. A great example is my girlfriend was having a lot of stomach problem and wanted to go see like a lot of different specialists and spend a lot of money for it. And every single time after she would eat, for the most part, her stomach would hurt. And a lot of women face a lot of these issues, men too, but primarily women. And she ended up just wanting to listen to her body. And she realized that there was a correlation whenever she ate red meat, that her stomach had a problem. It was because she was vegetarian for a long period of time where she wasn't eating red meat, and then she integrated meat back into her body. But what happens is meat's very hard to digest on your body, and so you need to have enzymes in it. I eat so much meat, but I always have eaten meat. I never really stopped. I stopped for a period of 2 months to try vegan. Horrible. But basically you have enzymes in your body to break it down. And so she didn't have those enzymes, or as many enzymes as it was. And that's just one component of it. And so once she cut that out, all of her problems went away.
Is there a way to reintroduce enzymes so you can eat meat?
That's something I don't know, but that's a huge thing. But that's just an aspect of like how you can just listen to your body. And like that's how people know that they're lactose intolerant. Like they drink dairy and it's just horrible, but they don't do that with other aspects. Like if people really are conscious about every single thing that they eat, they can analyze it. Like when I eat fast food, I feel like shit. If I ever eat, I haven't eaten fast food in over a year, but when I did, I felt like shit afterwards. When I eat a bag of chips, unless it's just like potatoes, salt, and avocado oil type thing, I feel like shit.
Where can people connect with you, man?
Yeah, best place is Instagram at Luke Lintz.
If people want to work with you, where should they go? Should they go to your HighKey website or?
Yeah, best place, HighKeyAgency.com, HighKey agency.com, or just sending me a DM on Instagram. Usually respond.
Awesome, dude. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on.
Dude, thank you, bro.